Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to be doing a short presentation on the basis period reform, just basically to explain the changes ahead and explain how it's going to affect individual GPs and partners and self-employed GPs. Throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the Q&A box on the screen, and we'll answer them as we go. So a little bit about us and our firm. So my name's Hugh, and I've been working closely with GP practices and individual GPs for almost 16 years now. I'm also joined by my colleague Robert. He's one of our tax managers, and again, he's been at the firm for the same time as me, over nearly 16 years, and he'll be answering any questions that we have today. So we are now part of the MHA healthcare team here in Cardiff. We were formerly HJE, and we recently merged with MHA back in July. So we have a dedicated team of specialist medical accountants here in Cardiff, together with a wider support throughout the MHA nationwide. We're currently acting for more than 80 GP practices, mainly throughout Wales, but also in parts of England, and act for over 850 individual GPs and consultants. And we're also part of the AISMA, who are responsible for more than 3,700 GP practices throughout the UK, more than 12,000 individuals. Again, just a briefing on the services that we currently provide here at the MHA Healthcare Department. So we regularly prepare accounts for GP practices and tax returns for individuals, together with self-employed GP accounts. We offer a range of tax plan advice to clients. We prepare the NHS pension certificates, that's both type 1 and type 2. We provide cash flow advice, drawing advice, advice on tax deductible expenses that you can claim, advice on succession planning and property ownership. And we also provide some software advice and training, such as Xero software and different alternative business structures that you could potentially go down the route of, such as limited companies. So I'll move on to what I'll be discussing today, which is the basis period reform. So what is the basis period reform? So basically, this is something that HM New Customs are bringing in this year, and it's a measure to realign individuals' accounting year or their basis period with the current tax year end moving forward. It's going to affect anyone with an accounting year end that's not currently a 31st of March or a 5th of April year end. And it's going to, from 22-23 will be the last tax year that you use your current basis period. So for example, if you're on a 30th of April year end or 30th of June year end, 30th of April or 30th of June 2022 will be the last year where that'll be assessed fully. So for the tax year 23-24, it's going to be made up of two elements. So the first one being the standard period, which will be the 12 months profits from the end of the accounting basis period in 22-23. And the second period is going to be what's called the transitional profits. And this will consist of all profits from the end of your last standard period up until 31st of March or 5th of April 2024. So just a quick example, if you're currently on a 30th of April year end, then your standard period will be made up of 1st of May 2022 to the 30th of April 2023. And your transitional period will be made from 1st of May 2023 to the 5th of April or 31st of March 2024. So this basically means it's going to be an extended period of 23 months being assessed in the 23-24 tax year. However, profits that do occur in the transitional period will be reduced by any unused overlap relief that is available. So basically, overlap relief is the relief that you receive on any profits that were taxed twice. That would have been once in the first year and then once in the second year when you first joined the practice, and that's due to the opening year rules. So this would basically have occurred when your accounting year end didn't align with the tax year end previously. Now, this relief would normally have been given to you on your cessation profits, but due to HM Customs bringing in the basis period reform, it's now going to be utilised sooner, and that's in the 23-24 tax year. And also, just to point, the additional profits arising from the transitional period, HMO and Customs have allowed this to be spread over the next 5 years. So the question is, who's going to be affected by the basis period reform? And this will basically be partners that have trading profits from a partnership, such as yourselves, partners in GP practice, or anyone self-employed individuals with trading profits and accounts such as locum GPs. However, it's only going to affect people who don't currently have a 31st of March year end or a 5th of April year end. So if you are on a 31st of March or a 5th of April year end, then you're not going to be affected by this. It's also the individuals who are likely to be more affected than others are those who have higher profits in the year 23-24 compared to when they first became self-employed. And this could be for a number of reasons, whether it's just a general increase in the practice profits over the years, or whether an individual GP is working more sessions now compared to when they started. So if you do have higher profits now, then you are more likely to be affected. So next question. So how is it going to affect you and your tax payments? So at the moment, HMO and Customs expect you to make tax payments on account, and they are made by 31st of January in the current year, 31st of July after the tax year, and then a balancing payment by 31st of January the following year. So if your current accounting period is of 31st of March 2022, then these profits will be taxed in the 21-22 tax year, and a balancing payment would have just been paid back in January 23. Take an example of these. So if your accounts are then prepared by October 22, so that's 7 months after the year end, it would have basically given you 4 months warning about your balancing payment due. However, if you're on a 30th of April 2022 year end, so that's 1 month later, then these profits then get taxed in the 22-23 tax year, and the balancing payment not payable until 31st of January 2024. So you take those as an example. If those accounts are prepared within 7 months after the year end, so that's by November 2022, you'd now have 15 months warning about your balancing payment due. So basically, any accounting period other than a 31st of March would defer the tax and superannuation. And the reason for that is because the NHS follows the same rules as HMO and Customs, and this would allow you time to plan for any larger tax bills. However, as a result of the basis period reform coming in, as of 24-25, you'll now be taxed on the profits that arise in the year. And also, just to watch out with the transitional profits being spread over 5 years, any additional tax this year will be payable up until 27-28, which is a fifth each year. The next few slides, I'll go through an illustration, an example of how this works. So first of all, I'm going to compare it to the old tax rules, so the basis before the basis period reform comes in. So if you take the example on the slide here now, so you've got an individual, they're on a 30th of April year end, and they earned £90,000 during the year end April 2022. The tax year this would fall into is the 22-23 tax year, and the final balancing payment payable to HMO and Customs by 31st of January 2024. The following year, 30th of April 23, they earn a bit more, £100,000 this time. Again, then that's taxed in the 23-24 year, and the tax payable by January 25. And then moving on next year, 30th of April 24, they earn a bit more again, 110,000, taxed in the 24-25 year, payable by January 2026. So there's quite a bit of warning from each of those years. So that's how it was done. I'll go through the next slide, basically showing how it's going to be done under the basis period reform. So take this as a 22-23. They will still be taxed on the £90,000 profits they earned during the year ended 30th of April 2022. This year hasn't changed. So 22-23 will still continue as it previously did, and the balancing tax payment will be due by 31st of January 2024. But for 23-24, this is where the big difference comes in. So now They'll be taxed on 12 months profits from the 1st of May 22 to the 30th of April 2023. So as the previous example, is £100,000 earned that year. Plus, they'll also be taxed on profits from 1st of May 2023 to the 31st of March 2024. So using the example of the previous profits, 110,000, so 11 twelfths of those, so it's 100,833 on top of the 100,000. You then take off the overlap relief. So for this example, this person's got £40,000. So that's £60,833,000 profits in the transitional period. You then divide that by the 5 years. So it's an extra 12,166 on top of the 100,000 to 33 April 23 that they're going to be taxed on. And again, the balancing tax payment for that is due in January 2025. So that's the first date to watch is January 2025, and that's where you're going to have the first larger payment if you are affected by this. You move on to 2025. You'll then be assessed on profits in the year from that point. So that would be any profits earned from the 1st of April 2024 to either the 31st of March or 5th of April 2025. But on top of those profits, you have to remember to add the 1/5 of the transitional profits. So that's the 12,166. And again, that 12,000 is going to be added to your profits every year until the year 2027, 2028. So that's basically the basis of period reform and a quick example of how it's calculated and how it's going to work and affect you. There are a few other additional points to consider, which I'll go through now. So the first point is changing your accounting date to a 31st of March or 5th of April year end. And you don't necessarily have to change it. HMRC Customs are not making you change your year end. However, HMRC Customs are making you declare your profits to a March year end each year. So if you don't change it, then the profits that you include on your tax return are going to have to be apportioned from 2 sets of accounts. Now, the problem with this is it's likely to require an estimate of the second set of accounts being included on your tax return. So therefore, if you didn't change the year end, you're more likely to have to submit an amended tax return to HMRC Customs. And this can also extend in the period that HMRC Customs have to investigate your return. Also, any underpaid tax because of estimated profits could result in an interest charge coming from HMRC Customs. So although you don't have to change the year end, there's no real benefit to keeping it on your previous year end. You may as well go to a March year end. Secondly, the second thing to consider, so maximising profits in 2024, which I know might seem odd if you pay more tax, but HMRC Customs have agreed that any additional profits in the transitional period can actually be spread over 5 years. So if you were to maximise your profits up to March 2024, then you will have an extended period to pay the taxes on those profits. So this is just something to consider. Third point, but basically the transitional profits that you can spread over 5 years, you don't actually have to take 1/5 of them each year. So you can actually accelerate when you actually pay the tax on those. Now, for example, if we know that the tax rates are going up in a future year, whether it's a change of government, or if individually you know that you're going to be in receipt of additional income in the future years, so that'll result in you either losing your personal allowance or being taxed at the additional rate of 45%. Then you can actually opt to accelerate the transitional profits and pay the tax on those in a year sooner. But it's only worth doing that if it's a beneficial tax break for you. So that's again something I think to consider or discuss with us or the accountants. It's also important to note that your transitional profits will actually automatically be spread equally for the 5 years. So say if you do decide that, you'll have to declare that on your tax return and bring the higher profits into the earlier year. However, unfortunately, you can't defer them. So you can't actually not pay that 1/5 in 1 year to do 2/5 the next year. Another point to consider. So when you retire or leave the practice, so that if that happens before the next 5 years, any transitional profits remaining would all be taxed in your final year at the practice or at the cessation of your accounts, and the tax payable will be by 31st of January following the end of that year. And finally, as mentioned earlier, NHS pensions, they follow HMO customs rules, so they apply the same basis as paying the tax when you're actually paying your NHS pension and calculating your annual pensional profits. So again, that's something to note there. I know one thing that we did when we were preparing our clients' pensional profits earlier this year is we did try to take this into consideration as best as we possibly could to try and mitigate any potential large adjustments due in March 25. So that's potentially something that accountants are trying to do. Yeah, so that's basically the basis period reform. So I know it's quite short, but I say it's a condensed version of the important things to consider. So I'm not sure if you have any questions or if you've put them in the question box, and either myself or my colleague Rob can answer them for you. If not, and something comes to mind a bit later on, then you say please feel free. I think our details are in the quick Q&A box, so you can contact us anytime with any questions or queries that you do actually have.